Today in the office, we have a new Chromebook from HP that has a chip in it that we have never tested before. It is the Kompanio 1200. So it's kind of the upper end of the ARM processor from MediaTek in a Chromebook that we've not really had hands-on yet with. So let's dive in. So what's in this relatively unmarked box? I mean, there's an HP logo really tiny over here on the side. This is actually the X360 13B. So it's an ARM-powered kind of mid-range Chromebook. So we're not expecting like a bunch of high-end stuff on the inside here. This is a device that's meant to be affordable and not cost too much, but also provide some decent performance because the chip inside, the Kompanio 1200, is a chip that isn't quite on par with the 1380 that we've seen in something like the Acer Chromebook 513, but it's got a lot of the same cores. The clock speeds are a little bit different, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to provide some pretty decent performance for an ARM-based Chromebook, because a lot of you hear ARM in the Chromebook and think, great, it's going to have awesome battery life and it's going to be kind of slow. But that's not the case with some of these new MediaTek processors. They actually have quite a bit of power to them, and this should be one of them. Again, I've not messed with a Chromebook with this particular chip in it, but it does bear some resemblance to the Kompanio 1380 that we have tested and that I've loved. Like the Acer Chromebook 513 is one of my favorites of 2022, and so I'm interested to see how this chip performs. Pretty simple, standard charging block here, nothing out of the ordinary. Let's get to the star of the show and get all this stuff off the table. So X360 means it is convertible. That's kind of HP's way of kind of denoting these things. And again, it's a 13B, so there's the 14C, which is kind of their higher end device. There's a 13C that was basically the Elite 1030 from a year prior to that. So the C devices are their higher end devices. Bs are usually their more affordable ones. And I can tell you, this thing looks really great. Like, I love the colorway on it. This kind of all blacked out look. It's super thin. It's ARM, so it doesn't need any fans or anything like that. So they can keep everything nice, light, and thin. I really like that, especially in convertible devices. I think if we're not going to see a bunch of detachables, I'd love to see thinner and thinner convertibles, because thin, well-made convertibles are still really handy and can be used in a variety of ways, kind of like tablets. I mean, because when I fold this thing around, I mean, it's still relatively thin. I do think for these thinner convertibles, I wish they'd stop sloping the edges of the display. Like, if it's going to be a convertible, make it to where it closes like a sandwich here. I don't love this. This feels like the ends of two pieces of a loaf of bread like flipped around and pushed up against each other. I never like that. So I'd love to see more of these devices consider that. Like, if you're going to be a convertible, think about the fact that people might want to use it this way. But because this is so thin and so relatively light, I'd say this is well under 3 pounds. This isn't a terrible feel, and if you wanted to use it like a tablet, you could. But before we crank it on, let's just take a look around. All plastic bottom chassis here, so there's not a lot of metal going on. That's pretty bendy. You can see right here, there's a lot of flex going on there. I don't love that, especially not in a convertible. It's got an aluminum lid on it, so this part up here feels nice and sturdy. And when it's closed, it feels nice and sturdy. But the minute I open it up, convertibles are these devices that you want to pick up and, move around with. They don't stay on the desk as much. So I'd really like to see, if you're not going to put aluminum in the bottom, at least reinforce this plastic so it doesn't have this much flex. I mean, I'm clicking the trackpad. You can hear it by moving that just a little bit. I don't love that. But what I'm really interested to see is how this processor gets along. And even with all of that flex, it's a lot of flex here too. Those keys feel great. HP has been doing a great job in the last couple years of building keyboards that just feel really nice. This feels very nice. That might be a glass trackpad in there. And it's got a great click, great travel, nice smoothness here. It does feel glass. If it's not, it's fooling me. So yeah, it's some good and some bad here already off the get go. The aluminum lid feels really nice. Form factor feels nice. It's nice and thin and light. Trackpad and keyboard feel pretty good, but there's some bend going on in the bottom. So what really is important is how this thing moves along from a processor standpoint. So in order to see that, I'm going to have to get this thing plugged in and get logged in and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to cut away. We'll be right back. Okay, as I normally do, as I got logged in and everything, I kind of felt my way around the device just a little bit, and I have a couple thoughts. First up is the screen. The IPS panel here, it's a 13.3 inch 16:9 screen, so nothing out of the ordinary, 1080p. The colors are good, the viewing angles are good, it's IPS, but the brightness is not great. So right around 250 nits. It looked a little bit dim. Pulled out the tester, checked it. It comes in right around 250 nits. So it's not a deal breaker, but I really wish HP would start putting at least 300 nit screens in on their devices, especially touchscreen ones that are like tablet oriented. It'd just be nice to have that little bit of extra brightness. The keyboard, just as I thought right off the bat, feels really nice to type on. It's not backlit. I thought that it was for some reason, but it's not a backlit keyboard. But it suffices. It's fine. The trackpad does have a tad bit of wiggle. There's no way I'd be able to get that on camera. I don't know, maybe Joe can. But you can see I'm not clicking that. It's moving that much before it even starts to move on the hinge to get a click. So you almost get this double click sound, which is unfortunate. I accidentally clicked on that video. We'll talk about that next. The speakers, on the other hand, are really, really great. I'm kind of shocked, actually, how good these speakers are. Usually HP puts like branding on their speakers. Actually, they have B&O right here on this one, and they just don't sound great. And I've always thought that's a little bit weird. But these speakers with less branding and no big speaker grills or anything like that up here actually sound pretty great. So check out spoken word on here.
Very good reason. Well, it's a good reason to me anyway.
I mean, that's loud. I'm having to really talk over this.
Smartwatches, or just.
And I'm going to fast forward to where the intro music comes in.
Features on a daily. If you hear all of this and you think to yourself, I'd still like to hear what this guy thinks. Well, let's get into it.
I mean, that's some really nice sound, especially out of a chassis that, again, upon first impression was a little bit, I don't know, bendy and just didn't feel great. Usually nice speakers come with a nicer chassis, and so I just fully expected these to be really tinny. Speakers sound really good. So you got a decent screen here, a good keyboard. Again, the trackpad is smooth and the click mechanism's good. It's just kind of got that floating thing going on, which happens with bendy chassis a lot of times. So it's a real mixed bag going on here. But I did run a quick Octane and got right around 30,000 on this thing. And so it's still settling in and all that good stuff. So I don't want to draw too many conclusions. And, you know, benchmarks get us to a certain point with this whole thing. Really, we need to try and, you know, work from it, plug it into external monitors, use a normal workflow to see what this chip is actually capable of. And more importantly, what is the battery capable of? And I'm going to pick up this USI stylus. It is USI compatible. And my stylus, it said it was dying. It looks like it died, but I did test it while we were off camera, and the USI pen works just fine. So it is USI capable. And I'm going to look here. Yeah, it's showing right now. Again, I've been messing with it, so that's no real indication. 80% is showing about 10 hours worth of battery. So it'll be interesting to see. The 1380 Companion, which is the highest end one you can get in a Chromebook right now, does nice on battery life. Like the 513 had a high res screen that's super bright, and you could still get 10, 11 hours out of it. But the 828, which is a mid-range Companion, in the Acer Chromebook 514, got wild battery numbers, like 14, 15 hours of battery life. And so it'd be cool to see if this one kind of sits somewhere in between. So, you know, maybe not quite the wild 14 or 15 hours, but like if it got a solid 12 or 13 hours, we could forgive maybe even a few performance drop-offs. But just moving around the interface so far, everything has worked pretty smoothly. Let me jump into tablet mode here and I'll just open up a couple things. Because generally speaking, if we start opening applications in tablet mode and start moving around these kind of gesture navigations, you can start to tell pretty quickly how good things are going to be. And you can see this is moving along really, really nicely. Let me do a couple side-by-sides, a couple resizes, a couple swipe ups. Yeah, all that stuff's moving along really nicely. And again, you've seen in this video already how many times I've just picked up and moved this thing around. It's convertible. It begs for that kind of activity. I don't love the bendy bottom chassis on this, but this one's got some upside to it. There's a camera shade up here as well, which is kind of nice. And, you know, around the sides, we've got a full-size A port here, a USB-C over there. Another USB-C here, micro SD card slot, headphone, microphone jack. So there's some pretty good I/O here. And again, this thing feels really nice when it's closed up. It feels really portable, and I like the overall look of it. So gonna have to spend some time with it, work with it just a little bit, and maybe get back to you guys down the road with some thoughts on it. But really, my thoughts around this device will center more around the Kompanio processor inside of it, because while I may not love the chassis that it's sitting in, I'm really interested in this particular chipset, because if it can offer somewhat high-end performance and still give that really sweet battery life, it could be a really nice fit maybe for a Chromebook down the road that has a little bit better build quality and overall just a better usability. For what it's worth, right now, the only place you can get this one particularly is on HP's website. It's at $449. And I'm a little reluctant to even mention the price at this point, because it'll probably go on sale and all that kind of stuff. And when it hits retailers, that all could change. If Best Buy gets this thing in stock. But at $449, it's a little bit of a tough sale to me, because I think you're going to find Chromebooks that are built better. And so again, when I do revisit this one again, if we do any kind of content on this moving forward, it's going to be really about the processor here, because I think when it comes down to just buying a Chromebook for that kind of money, there's probably some other devices you could get that are going to deliver a better overall experience. But I am super interested to see how this processor performs in this particular Chromebook. But guys, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this one, give us a thumbs up, head down there, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to ring the notification bell as well if you'd like to be alerted when we make future videos just like this one. Until next time, we'll see you.